It seems like every weekend in this country there's a ridiculous protest about something or other. If it's not environmentalists protesting the climate, it's pro-Palestinian supporters protesting Israel and supporting Hamas. But there was a protest this weekend that I think we could all believe was wholly worthwhile and we could all get behind. People right around the country got together to protest against the introduction of a digital ID. You can see some of the footage there of crowds gathered in Melbourne, Brisbane, Sydney. There were crowds in Perth, as well as in North Queensland. The Labor government introduced legislation for a digital ID into the Senate last year, and curiously, it was passed without any debate being allowed, which should be a warning sign. It'll be debated in the lower house and voted on at some point later in the year. If it becomes law, it enables the government to collate all of your information in one place. And of course, that becomes dangerous because though they say it will be a voluntary scheme, we've seen over the last few years what happens with voluntary schemes, i.e. vaccination mandates. And of course, having all your information in one place controlled by the government, do we really trust them not only to keep it safe, but do we really trust them not to use it to start to dictate what we can and can't purchase, where we can and can't go? We see all of this happening in the debate on climate at the moment, both Labor and Liberal, as well as big organisations such as the United Nations, etc., who are making all sorts of demands about how we live. A digital ID is the first step in a Chinese-style social credit system, which, of course, would lead to ultimate control. So whether or not it's convenient, Caleb, the question is, do we really trust the government with this sort of control and ability? So it's good to see people finally, maybe it's belatedly, protesting and making a noise about it.
Geez, I know I've only been back for 5 minutes, but you're really punting them up for me to just hit them for 6. Do we trust the government? Of course we don't trust the government. I mean, if the government has an opportunity to centralise any kind of power, it will take it and it will never hand it back. I mean, case in point, before the war effort, the levy of income tax was done by state governments, right? And then we recognised, well, we need a shed load of money right now in order to go off to war. So the federal government took the power to levy income tax away from the states, centralised it with the Commonwealth. And do you reckon the states got that power back after the war went away? No, because once they had the power to levy income tax, well, look at all this money that's sitting here. Of course we're going to continue to do it. So the federal government says, look, it's all voluntary. You know, you can decide whether or not you have a digital ID. But it starts with, this is a digital ID for you to deal with Medicare and Centrelink and the bastards at the ATO. And then it becomes, well, perhaps now instead of using another form of ID to deal with the bank or another business, well, it's digital ID over here. Once you get a critical mass of people who've signed up voluntarily, do you really think the banks and all the other service providers are going to hack that they're going to have two systems to deal with? Right. Of course not. They're going to say the digital ID is what a large number of people are using, therefore the rest of you must use it. And once you've done that, you've handed over all your data, it's centralised with the government, and God knows what they might do with it from that point onwards. You know, you could have a social credit score like they do over in China. On and on it goes. The more you centralise power, the more danger you create. It's as simple as that.
And what's really telling is there wasn't a whisper about this, not that I saw, correct me if I'm wrong, on any of the media outlets.
The Courier Mail, I think, had a story, but that was the only one I could
about the
find.
one in North Queensland, yes, which was probably the smallest rally out of the lot when you compare it to every capital city, basically. I don't think Adelaide had one, but all the rest did. How telling is that? How telling is that? That government don't really want you to be aware of this bill. They don't want you to be aware of their plans for you, little people, and their willing comrades in the media decide, well, we don't want to draw attention to these rallies either. You saw the numbers there. They were impressive numbers for protest rallies, and yet not a whisper about it from the mainstream media. Why do you think that is? They don't want people getting educated about what this will mean going forward. They don't want people to know what they're trying to foist upon us. And so I thought that as much as this is a great story, half the story is how quietly this just was not covered. Nobody talked about it. How many times in this country have we got to watch government introduce policies, which then become laws, obviously, that's what bills become most of the time, in the name of safety and keeping you safe, when in order to do that, they are taking your rights away from you. A centralised system means your government knows everything there is to know about you. Caleb Bond got a parking fine last week.
How did you know that?
He got his prescription for fill in whatever meds he may be on, and such. It is so invasive. No government should know that much about you. It is none of their jolly business. And for people who argue, oh, well, you know, unless you're a crook, who cares about your privacy? Give up all your info. Unless you're up to some, you know, nasty business, you shouldn't mind. That is so naive. You do not understand, if you follow that line of reasoning, just how powerful data is. It's now the most valuable thing on the planet, because if someone has enough data on you, they know everything there is to know about you, and they especially know how to manipulate you. Say, you know, how you might vote, or how they could change your vote. I mean, the scope of this is beyond what everyday people really think of when they think of digital ID, and the fact that it's being sold to us as, oh, it'll be so convenient. I didn't ask for this. In fact, I've yet to meet anyone who asked for this. It's the government that's pushing it. Do you know a single individual who's like, oh, it's so onerous when I'm asked for some ID to pull out my driver's license? Oh, I can't stand it. It's the worst. You're carrying it around anyway. That is not onerous. Nobody's objecting to that. And something that Alexandra Marshall put really beautifully when she spoke at the New South Wales rally in Sydney over the weekend, talking about liberty, talking about freedom, and how it goes hand in hand with privacy. You can't have one without the other. And so while government's willing to talk about, oh, this is for your safety, they are nibbling away at your liberty, at your privacy. They are kissing cousins of the Enlightenment. You can't have one without the other. So if government is taking one, you know they're taking the other.
Just on that, the fact that, you know, we have less and less privacy. I was reading over the weekend about, those self-scanning checkouts at the supermarket, which are the bane of my life.
Yeah, which now film you.
Yes, but they're going to get rid of them because they've got even better technology. They're developing trolleys.
I know.
Where you simply put your grocery in the trolley, it automatically scans it, but it's somehow connected to your home, so it tells you what you need. You need more eggs, you need more milk, you need this or that. So right across the board, as the whole of society becomes digital, there's less and less privacy. And even just forget the privacy issue for a second, or the rather government use it against you. Just the fact that we now see data being hacked left, right and centre to the point where you hardly raise an eyebrow anymore. OK, Optus was hacked or whatever company. Well, no biggie. The government is no different. In fact, many government departments have been hacked already.
Yes.
So just on that basis alone, you wouldn't trust the government, let alone digital ID leading to social credit scores.
Yeah. And you look at the concepts like the shopping trolley that you're talking about. Don't forget as well that the more everything is digitised and we become more and more reliant on the electronic side of things in order to do basic tasks like create a shopping list or know what is and isn't in your pantry. This all starts out free, and then they start to make you pay for it because you are reliant on it. I mean, you go and buy a car these days, a Beamer or something, there are certain elements of that car that they actually make you pay an ongoing subscription for in order for it to be enabled. You can't just go and get something and make it work anymore. They can make you bleed through the nose for the rest of your life. And that's what they will do with your data. Never forget, if something is free, you are the product. And that is exactly how it works with data.
And even those smart cars, we've talked about that they're selling your data to insurance companies.
Yes.
And people are like, wait, why has my insurance premium gone up by 20%? Well, they know you braked suddenly last week. They know that you sped up extortionately the week before that, and they're now billing you accordingly. It's all data. It is extremely valuable, and you're not even going to be able to get away with breaking panicking suddenly because a mother was crossing with her ducklings and you were like, oh, I'll let these guys live. No.
I'm a bit concerned. Liz seems to know I had a parking fine. She knows about my prescriptions. I think she's already got my digital ID, to be perfectly honest, and I'm quite concerned about it.
Well, I trust Liz more than the government.
That's a fair point.
Look, it's a very small compliment, but I'll take
if my punting records from last week at Warrnambool are attached to my digital ID, though, I won't be so worried because it will prove that I had a very good week.